Recently, an international team of astrophysicists discovered 6 galaxies in images from the James Webb Space Telescope. Now, this might not sound like a groundbreaking discovery, but there is something that makes this find kind of intriguing. You see, according to the Big Bang Theory, these galaxies should not exist. Joining us now to discuss these findings is Dr. Michael Houts, a researcher, a scientist who worked 11 years for Los Alamos National Laboratory and is currently nuclear research manager at NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center. Now, Dr. Houts has led critical projects in space nuclear power and propulsion, receiving many accolades, including NASA's Distinguished Service Medal. Dr. Houts, thank you for being on the show today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, David.
Absolutely. Look, it is always an honor to talk with you. I really appreciate your perspective on these things. So obviously, our universe is made up of billions upon billions of galaxies. So this article from Science Daily, why would the discovery of a few more galaxies leave secular scientists stumped?
Well, it just, it contradicts what was predicted. We're looking in areas where there weren't supposed to be galaxies. There probably weren't even supposed to be stars in some of the areas we were looking at. But sure enough, we're finding stars, we're finding galaxies, and that's and so again, that's to me, that's what's exciting about science. I mean, we're still learning. We're learning about God's creation, and a lot of times we'll predict things, and they're different than what we predicted. And so that's the good thing about science. And then it stays good as long as we're free to adapt. We're free to say, okay, that was wrong. We were wrong there, and ideally, we're allowed to fully, follow the science, I guess is what you would say. And so that's so the good news was, again, it's, I saw one of the articles and it's just say, wow, this is great. This is, sometimes you'll see things that you have to rewrite all the textbooks. This isn't all we expected. But the thing we have to be, of course, cautious about is when people say, yeah, but if we go this other direction, that might accidentally indicate God, or that's a little too consistent with the Bible, so we're not allowed to consider that. And that's where it gets, sometimes people talk about true science versus fake science. But if we follow the data, it's throughout history, it'll always end up being consistent with the Bible.
Mike, that's a great point, because when you think about true science versus fake science, there really isn't such a thing as fake science. There's only true science. Those are the facts, right? And then you have some scientists who kind of their interpretation of those facts leads to this fake understanding. But it's really, there's only one option, and that's true science, isn't it?
Yeah, there should be. Yeah. And that's, I know it's a bit of a play on words, but there's just so much, again, what you could call just people interpreting things in a way that's very biased, very unscientific. Yeah. And so, but rather than having to say that full sentence, you'll hear people just start saying, well, you got true science. And that's when people are really looking at the evidence, seeing where that evidence leads us, everything we should consider, get everything out on the table. Versus the fake science is, well, no, here's the evidence, but you cannot consider God, you cannot consider the Bible, and so based on that, what can we do? And that approach, it falls short, and it's been falling short for centuries and continues to fall short.
Yeah, leave it all on the table, right, and see where the evidence is leading. We just had David Coppage on the show talking about Jupiter's moon Io and how its volcanic activity actually indicates a younger universe than some had previously thought. But it seems like this discovery of all of these galaxies seems to be part of a bigger trend where this new data is prompting us to question some of the things that we've just always assumed in science.
Right, and I would say just assumed, maybe you would say in the Big Bang Theory, or assumed certain aspects, because again, true science, it's shouldn't be making assumptions like that. We should be looking at the data. I think you remember the famous open letter to the scientific community back in 2004, when people were saying, hey, we're making up 96% of the universe now to try to make the Big Bang work, and that was just the dark matter, dark energy components. I mean, you had inflation, you have all these. They were very polite in the letter. Of course, they say adjustable parameters, but people look at that and they say, hey, is this even a scientific theory? I mean, when you think about it, it's by definition not falsifiable. And that's one of the things we've seen with the latest data, the data from the James Webb is, no one would even think about, saying that, oh, this falsifies the Big Bang, because the way the Big Bang is set up, they'll just add some more adjustable parameters. We'll just do this. And you have everything ranging from, well, somehow stars and galaxies form much, much faster than we thought they could, to I think one group, and I'm not sure if they're gaining much traction, but they're saying, well, maybe the universe is actually twice as old as we've been thinking it was. It's like 27 billion years old instead of 13 billion years. So, it's but again, it's you get into this area and just if a theory is not falsifiable by most definitions, it's not even a scientific theory. And I think that's one of the things we're running up against here. But that said, again, the articles I've seen at least have been pretty good about just wow, this is completely different from what we expected. And so that's again what makes science and engineering exciting if you run into things like that.
It is exciting because these kind of observations wouldn't have even been possible just a couple of years ago until the James Webb came up. And in fact, in one of these articles, it mentions that these potential galaxies that we see are so massive that they should not be possible under current cosmological theory, which indicates that, hey, we've got to adjust. We've got to come up with a better cosmological theory. And I would posit that maybe it's time we don't just adjust the Big Bang model again. Maybe it's time we look for another model. But
yeah, those were several hundred of the people that signed that open letter would agree with you completely. And a lot of them weren't, I'd say most of them probably weren't Bible believers, but they just said, hey, this is, we need to, this just isn't the right one. I mean, just based on all the data that's coming in. And so it's, so yeah, I agree with you completely on that statement.
So true. In fact, one of the co-authors of the of astrophysics at the University of Colorado Boulder in this article says, and I quote, "It's bananas." And I know that's not a scientific term, but it really is astounding the things that we're finding. How should the faith community approach this? I mean, given these findings, it sounds like the current cosmological models probably need to be reevaluated. So what role could biblical insights possibly play into a reevaluation? What do we need to be looking at here?
Well, I think a lot of a good theory is Bible believers is going to be consistent with the Bible, and so there's several biblically consistent cosmological theories that actually do a better job predicting what the universe would look like. In other words, predicting the universe looking the way it does now from an Earth that's 6,000 years old than the Big Bang's doing. And so, we need to maybe develop some of those theories. A lot more thought can go into that. A lot of things we could be investigating, take into account our best current knowledge of physics, things like gravitational time dilation, other factors that could come into play. But also need to make sure we're not afraid to go into science and engineering. That's one trend I think we have to be nervous about. Is just realize, if we have our know someone or have a child or someone that's really interested in science and engineering, encourage them to pursue that. But just let them know that, in many ways, this is still a mission field. They'll have people that are entrenched. They've confused atheism with science, and they'll think that, well, no, you can't. You're not allowed to talk about God. You're not allowed to talk about the Bible. That's not true. I mean, science should be the pursuit of truth, looking for what really happened. And again, throughout history, we see, I don't want to say like science catching up with the Bible. I mean, 500 years ago, a lot of people believed in spontaneous generation. Just the last few decades, we've learned so much about the complexity of life, just the idea that life could just make itself. I mean, it's been thoroughly disproven just in the last few decades. Information in the genome is another topic, just the last few decades. Just understanding DNA, how intricate the DNA molecule is, how well designed that molecule is, and to say that it just spontaneously arose. Again, it goes against everything we know about true science. And so people are starting to realize that, hey, the Bible's had it right all along. And in many areas, true science is catching up, and hopefully that'll hold true in cosmology also. So I think, again, it's just good data for the people that put their faith in the Bible, but it's something we should embrace and look at what the observations are and put those back into the biblically consistent models, improve those models even more. So again, I think it's very exciting, but just let it all the options out on the table.
And Mike, that's one thing that's incredibly exciting about what you're doing is you are doing real research as a nuclear engineer. All of the things that you're observing, the way particles interact with each other, these types of things, that's adding to scientific information about the universe, about what we know so far. And again, I think it's really exciting how much progress we've made, again, like you said, just within the last decade or so, and it's all pointing back to design. So I guess my question would be, how do you think discoveries like these influence the conversation between the scientific community and those of us who might view the universe through a biblical lens? How do we interface better to say this is not an opposition of science versus faith? This is science and faith are so compatible, and we always have to make faith-based assumptions, faith-based beliefs, regardless of how we view the origin of the universe. If we view it in a Big Bang, well, we have to have faith that somehow the universe can come about by random chance processes and order can develop from chaos, right? If we believe in a creator, then we have to have faith that there is a God outside of nature that can create the universe. How do you think we should approach this to do better when we're communicating between scientists and those who are Christians?
Well, I think the key is just communicating. Don't get entrenched. Keep everything out on the table. Respectfully listen to each other's opinions. And I think discoveries like this that helps. And granted, that's on the other. I'll say the other side. But if there were non-believers that are seeing this, they have to realize, hey, stuff that we were really dogmatic about even a year or two ago. Well, hey, we're finding out that that wasn't correct. I mean, it's kind of like but they used to talk about things like junk DNA or things that we know now is completely wrong. Some people are really dogmatic about that, and so hopefully that just softens the discussion. So it is actual communication. People are actually talking with each other. And I should also mention the center I work at. There's a lot of Bible believers, a lot of people that have a very strong faith. They also do a very, very good research. Werner von Braun, he was a Bible believer. He kind of recoiled at the ideas that things were random or things weren't designed. I mean, he knew better than that. He was basically responsible for the Saturn V rocket that put us on the moon. So again, you have Butch Wilmore. He's one of the astronauts that's up there right now. I mean, I know it's a lot of media on that. He's one of the ones that I won't say sensational, but you get the stuck in space, and he was the commander of that module that went up. Well, he's a very strong Bible believer, young Earth creationist. I always like to point out 6,000 years is still a really long time, but it's referred to as young Earth creation. So he's a really strong Bible believer. People that know him, I mean, he is just incredible. Just really smart, really accomplished, very high achiever. People like that will also really facilitate just the discussion between people that may for whatever reason be I won't say against the Bible, but just for whatever reason just not as open to that as they might otherwise be. But discoveries like this, I think they really facilitate that. And on our side as Christians, we need to make sure we're always speaking the truth in love the same way. Don't stay away from the name calling and everything else, which again I think credit most Bible believers realize they need to do that also. But keep it a cordial, open discussion.
I think that's so true. And Dr. Houts, again, what we find is that good scientific research does align with faith-based beliefs. Dr. Werner von Braun, you mentioned, wrote entire papers, did articles with so many different magazines back in the day, and he would speak of those types of things. So I don't think there's anything to be ashamed of at all. Like you said, we have to keep things cordial. Now, as someone deeply involved in both faith and science, do you have any ideas? What are some key questions that you hope that upcoming James Webb Telescope observations might help us answer? Do you have any predictions, anything that we should be looking for?
Okay, well, I'll give you my real optimistic one. Okay, so we're the heavens declare the glory of God, and it could well be that we will be on Earth or in orbit and observing the heavens, and that of course points back to God, glorifies God. But I hope if we keep a very open mind, follow the data where it leads, follow the science, the true science where it actually leads, even if it strongly again glorifies God. It strongly points back to the Bible, strongly points back to God. I'm hopeful we'll be able to piece that together and figure out, did God design the universe so that we'll actually be able to travel around the universe? Okay, now that's the space geek in me coming out, but he may or may not have. But I think if we stay committed to theories that are really structured to try to be random, to try to not give any indication at all that there might be a God, well, we're never going to figure out that answer. And I would say it would it kind of serve us right, but I hate saying that because I'm part of us. So I think it's so hopefully we'll see the discoveries that again, if we just follow the science, follow the observations, look at all theories, whether they're biblically consistent, those are the ones I think will be right, but follow the ones that are biblically inconsistent also. Just let the science go where it goes, and hopefully that'll lead to some really great discoveries.
I have faith that what we find whenever we follow the science is going to be consistent with the Bible, because it has a pretty good track record that stood up to the test of time. Dr. Houts, thank you so much for being on the show today. It was just a privilege to have you, and I'd love to have you back in the future.